Hello, everyone, and welcome to Organize Your Closet and Your Life Will Follow. This is Ruma Tenbrink, and I'm so freaking excited. I am here with cookbook author VC Tang, and I'm so excited because we're going to be doing a deep dive into basically how stir fry stories came to life. Hello, VC. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well, and I'm so excited. I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm wondering, did you want to just give us a little background synopsis before we dive into questions? It's totally your call.
Yeah, so this cookbook writing thing is a whole new venture. I'm at a time in my career where I am reinventing myself and found the right moment. And I'm sure we're going to get into this, but that's how this came to be. And I had previously, done nonprofit work for about 15 years. And I would say that's my professional career. But I have had a lot of background in community work, particularly in the Thai community in the Bay Area, done martial arts. I'm a part of a Zen practicing community. So I've had a lot of other educations, and all of those things kind of just snowballed into this moment that we all experienced together, which was the pandemic. And I had the luxury of time and space and a lot of soul searching. And here we are.
The pandemic was so just, in that regard, it was amazing because I think a lot of people were able to do soul searching and what have you. Let's see. Our connection is through nonprofit, just in
Yep.
case anyone's wondering how I'm so just fortunate to know VC Tang. I was also in the nonprofit sector. Well, I still am. And so we were connected through another couple of folks that we know. And then we finally met this year, which is awesome. So, yeah. So thank you for the intro. Do you want me to, should I just dive in with the first question?
Yeah, let's
You
do it.
ready? Okay. And I'm old school. I have my little notebook here.
I
So
have a notebook too.
So first question for you is, why did you decide to write a cookbook, memoir in particular? And VC, do you have the book near you? Can you hold it up or?
Yeah, let me go grab it.
Oh, yes, please. That would be awesome. And happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. Here she's back. Oh, that is so beautiful. I love it. Hold it up just a little bit more. And oh, wow, look at that. And so it's Emily Ramai Kim is the artist, correct?
Right, she's
Is
the
that how you
illustrator.
say her name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. 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 So first question, why did you decide to write a cookbook? And it's a memoir. So in particular, why is it a memoir cookbook?
I think that food and stories cannot be disconnected from each other. I think automatically when we eat together, we'll tell something. It doesn't have to be the great American novel or anything, but it's kind of like when people say smell is the sense that activates memory in a really strong way. I think eating and food and cooking also does that. And when a bunch of people are sitting around together, stories will come out. And I also think that even mentioning food helps people let their hair down once you mention food.
Yeah.
Even if there's no food around, and people mention, oh, this is my favorite, whatever, or, somebody in my family made that dish. And then all of a sudden, whoever we're with, or even if they're strangers, will have their own version of that to say, I think. So to me, the cookbook memoir, I actually teetered on like, is it one or the other? Do I
Yeah.
just write a bunch of short stories and vignettes, or do I just
Mm.
write a bunch of recipes? And for me, that didn't feel complete. And I actually did not like the term memoir. It felt like I was like at the end of life or something, um,
Right.
or like past my peak or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a term that now is. I think it's becoming more popular. That it actually makes this cookbook more complete. We can hear where this person had an interaction with this dish that stuck with them.
Mm.
And I think people want to hear that. I think actually just a recipe by itself, it can become naked. And if you just I think then it asks the reader to then make the recipe so that they have their own experience with it, because by itself, it's just like, okay, this recipe is like, it's sitting all alone.
Right. No, and
Yeah. So
I
that's why it
really,
became a cookbook memoir.
I love that it's combined. I remember when I was little, I don't know if you remember Little House on the Prairie. So
Hmm.
Little House on the Prairie, they actually made a cookbook that goes with the story. So the story and
Mm.
the food from the Little House books was created into recipes. And so it kind of reminds me of that concept of bringing stories and food together, which I think is just natural, you know? I love it. So I'm excited
Oh,
to, I haven't had a chance yet to read your entire memoir, but I'm going to. So I'm very, very excited. And when you look at the title, Come Eat Grandma, that right there to me is like a story. Just right there. I mean, that's a story. I don't know if you wanted to discuss the title or how that came to be.
that came to be because I grew up in the States. I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and all of my extended family, my grandparents are in Thailand and stayed there. And so my grandmother passed when I was in middle school. So I
Mm,
only have a handful of, real life memories with her.
yeah.
All fun and all like happy ones. But maybe one not so happy because she was in the hospital. But even that turned,
Aw.
it was like
Yeah.
a moment of togetherness for our family. And then, like years went by, I became a young adult and started really loving cooking. And I learned later, really loved to make noodles. And so I tried
Mhm.
my hand at noodles in a stir fry. It's actually really tough. They can get soggy. They can be too dry. They can be too hard. Like they're not, they're kind of finicky that way. And you have to really get to know them. And so once I got better at it. I got good enough at it that my mom would be like, oh, can you make this? Can you make that? So that by the time I would finish cooking, we'd be standing at the stove. I'd be plating the food, and she would just be so happy that she could eat something that's so nostalgic for her. And she's like, oh, your yai was so good at making this. And so like as I'd plate it, and she'd like take her plate and she'd be like, yai ma tin cow, which is in Thai, grandma, come eat. And
Oh,
I think that's just so sweet to call out to your past mom, as if
yeah.
she's here, she's probably eating it. Like Thai people
Right.
love to put out food offering. I know a lot of cultures do, and Thai culture is one of
Hmm.
them. Like, keep the spirits fed, please.
Yeah. And what an affirmation for your mom to be so excited to like indulge in your food. Like that's an
Mm.
affirmation right there, because I'm sure your grandma was an incredible cook. And so for your mom to be like waiting in tow, waiting for you to finish, that's so cute. But yeah, I think like to me that would be a very like if my mom was to say, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat your food." So that must have felt really good to you for her to affirm it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating as I was trying to teach myself, but
Yeah.
as with all things, patience and time and a lot of trial and error, until it also tasted good to me.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. But I mean, if your mom was affirming it pretty much from the beginning, right? Or what was your, like, how long did it take you to enjoy your own food? Or maybe you're just your own worst critic.
I probably am.
I'm
I
sure it was
probably
good
am. But
right from the
I
start.
also, in my own defense, I would also say it took a lot of eating and travel. And I don't mean travel like, oh,
Mm.
I've traveled all around Thailand eating all the spots, or I'm some like restaurant foodie, but
Yeah.
just a lot of years in people's homes, like not even thinking that this would be a culinary, like a lot of aunties, I feel like. I've been
Yeah.
in and out in a lot of aunties' worlds and eaten lots of versions of pad thai, lots of versions of tom yum and curries, and every house makes it different, and it's more about that. Like every auntie I've talked to will just say, like our house makes it this way,
Mm.
and or like my house will say we have a sweet tooth, so even our curries will come out a
I
little
literally
sweet.
had to close like 15 tabs.
No, I'm glad you caught
Okay.
that.
Yeah, and I was like, why is it getting like it was getting light, like it was the light was going down. I was like, okay, oh my gosh. Okay, cool. So sorry for the interruption.
Oh, it's
Um,
okay.
do you want to continue to the next? Should we continue on to the next
Yes.
question? Okay, cool. So question two that I had was, what was your favorite part about working on this book?
My favorite part was I had all of these memories that I came back to as lessons for myself, whether they were lessons about nature and the planet, whether they were about a certain step in cooking, or even about, I have a story in there about how I applied food to being a better boss at work. And it felt good to finally have it written down on paper so it would solidify for me too. And I think also my other favorite part was there are a lot of conversations that I had during the pandemic with my mom over food. And I think that almost be kind of, as like pretending I was a musician, that would be like my jam session about, what would I write about? Would be I cook something, my mom and I would sit down and eat it, and automatically she would either reminisce about, her childhood in Thailand, or even just like experiences running her own business here. And things that I had forgotten about because it was my childhood. And so that was my favorite part too, was sitting down with her and remembering these things that, were kind of my other education growing up. Like I said, like, we all go through school and sit in a classroom at a desk, but I feel like I had all these other sources of education that weren't at a desk in the classroom. They were in the kitchen, they were sitting on the floor, they were in a makeshift dance studio, which was sometimes a parking lot, so I had a chance to finally encapsulate, core memories, and not even all of them, but some really core memories of what I consider to be my education.
I love hearing about your mom and the memories with her. Tell me more about how old were you when you started like being in the kitchen with your mom or grandma?
Okay. So the funny part is I was never in the kitchen with my grandmother.
Mm.
I I had seen her in Thailand, and I have the memories. I actually almost all the memories I have of her are in the book, which actually goes to say how few I had, or maybe three, that I remember being with her. And they were never in the kitchen, and they never had to do with food. So I was like miffed when I got older, and I would hear stories about her through her children, that so much about her was about food, how she grew food, how she sold food, how she made food. And I was like, I never saw any of this. And then with my mom, um, yeah, so when I started in the kitchen, it was not with Thai food. It was with, I think my first memory ever is mixing a pancake batter. I think I loved the idea of mixing. I think that's like a really good, like, first kitchen task for children, was mixing batter. It was so fun. And then like you would
That was
hand it
me
over.
too. I loved mixing.
hand it over to the adult, and they would like, I would have to look up because I wasn't tall enough to see the stove, or I'd have to stand on something, and it's like magically it would become a pancake. So that's my first memory in the kitchen. And then actually there's this like really irresponsible memory where, I was envious of my like school friends, where we would make cookies together, and I was like, oh, that's such a childhood thing to also make together. But what my mom really wanted me to make was like fried fish patties. And I was like, that's actually quite dangerous, like deep fried fish patties at like 8 years old. And I was like, that in hindsight, that I was like, she must have had a lot of confidence in me that I wouldn't splatter, that I wouldn't hurt myself, that, or she was very, because I haven't burned myself making those fish patties in particular.
Oh, that's great.
So it ended okay, but I'm thinking back on it, I was like, oh, okay, I must have been like at least a very calm child, enough for her to trust me to like drop fish cake into hot oil.
Well, it's just, that reminds me, it's so funny what, our parents' generation, what they let their kids do, like, not wearing a seatbelt in the car, stuff like that.
Well, I think she let me do that before she let me handle a knife.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Today,
like,
yeah,
okay,
today
like she must have
an
trusted
8-year-old.
my hand coordination well enough.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? Her living was tailoring. So she would make custom clothes and do alterations. So she taught me needlework at a young age. So I think working with my hands as a young child started young. So I think she just trusted that, like a needle, like the first dangerous thing a child can probably handle is a needle, like, cause like it's a pinprick, it's like an injection, so of all the injuries to sustain,
we have a lot in common. My mom was a seamstress too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she taught me how to, what's that thing you do where you put it in the wooden hoop and you press it, and then you do, is embroidery?
Embroidery.
Yeah, so I started learning how to do embroidery and crochet, and then, I don't know anything now. Like, she taught me how to knit.
I loved sewing buttons.
Knit a whole scarf when I was like 5, and now
knitting took too long for me. Crocheting goes a little faster.
Yeah, with the little hook thing.
It goes
love
much faster.
Crocheting. But I did make a lot of little doilies and stuff.
Aww. Buttons were my thing. I had a button collection, and I loved putting on buttons. I was like, this thing is, it's not coming off.
Right. And were you good at making the little like cut for the buttonhole and then sewing it? Did you actually sew
the buttonholes? She did the buttonholes. She had one of those machines that I sewed on the buttons.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had this really cool machine that we brought over from Thailand where you could make a button where it's like, it's made or covered with the material that your garment is. So you could take scraps from the garment and then use it to make your own button, so it would totally match.
That's so fancy.
And it was like, I would love to use this button maker. It would like smush in the textiles, and it was like a really fun game.
That's very fancy. So I know we were on question 2. What was your favorite part about working on the book? And did you want to embellish a little more on kind of what was your favorite part?
I think that was it, was the part.
What's your, like, the next question is, what's your writing process like? So maybe you can kind of meld the two a little bit.
Yeah. So it actually does. It is a good segue because, I said that my favorite part about writing the book was having these like quote unquote jam sessions with my mom, just talking over lunch or dinner to let the content of the book come out in a natural way. And then like little by little we'd eat, and then I'd go back to the computer and then write whatever we talked about. And so that was part of my process. But the other part too is, sometimes there would be memories that she wasn't a part of, so like my own independent travels in Thailand, what it is to work in an office job, those kinds of things. Those would be the stories I would tell her.
Okay.
the things that she didn't experience with me. And so part of my writing process is sometimes I will just start with either one line or one image. It'll just come to me in like a burst of inspiration. And I
Mm-hmm.
will say usually on the
That's
days
so cool.
that I've meditated, or I'm completely doing something else, going for a walk, doing tai
Yeah.
chi, during like a really quiet moment, or oddly enough in the shower. I think that's so true what they say about the shower is like this really magical place where problems
Right.
get solved and ideas come to life. And so I'll get like a one liner, and or just like a memory that I had forgotten about that came to me. And so one of the things that I really wanted to capture in the book was this one time where I told my mom I had spent my 20s traveling in Thailand, quitting my job to travel in Thailand to
That's so
discover
awesome.
it
Good
for
for you.
myself. But then I went to grad school, like a good Asian immigrant child. I went to business school,
Oh,
which I
you
had
did?
which I had a really
That was
good
that
time at.
acceptable enough?
Oh, that was great. It was perfect. So I went to business school, and then I got a job that I was very happy with, and I stayed with for quite a long time. And I during the middle of that, I told my mom, I was like, aren't you happy I settled down and got a real job and I don't quit my job to go to Thailand anymore? And she totally one-upped me. She totally surprised me. And she was like, but look at you. Look at what you can do. And I was like, oh my God, this whole time, she saw what I had done and taken all those risks. And I think it maybe came when I was able to correct some of her Thai words. I think that's when
Mm.
it turned. When I
Wow.
can tell her some of the latest Thai things, when I had actually immersed myself so much in not even just Thailand, but like the Thai community here, you know,
Yeah.
did such a
Where
good
was she
job.
at the time? Where was she living at the time when this happened?
Oh, my mom has always been in and around San Francisco.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
she's here. She knows
yeah,
this place really well.
yeah, yeah. But I think that it really said something where, it's like I am no longer the source of kindness for my daughter has all of these sources telling
Mm.
her, who we are, what our heritage is, and she's now teaching me things that I don't know about
Aw.
my own
Yeah.
homeland. And I think that was kind of the turn that, when I said it as a joke. I was like, aren't you glad I don't like quit my job? And, now that, aren't you glad I've grown up now? And she's like, well, no, but like, look at what you've been able to do. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that I think when you said about like, isn't that validating for your mom to like your food? I think this validation hit me harder,
Really.
than
Yeah. That's
having.
all about her culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was born there, right? She was
Yeah,
born, her
yeah,
parents were born in Thailand.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did they end up here? If you don't mind?
My parents met in San Francisco, so they came
Oh, how
separately.
cute.
Yeah,
Oh,
and they met in San Francisco at a Thai restaurant, which is where many at that time,
no way.
if you're a Thai immigrant in the
Love
70s
it.
in San Francisco, and this you would see remnants of this culture to this day. So a lot of the best Southeast Asian food is still in the Tenderloin
Really?
um,
Okay.
neighborhood of San Francisco, which is where my mom and my dad had their first apartment, and where
Mm.
they met a lot of their Thai, to this day, Thai friends. So there was a very like tight knit community that I think was within the same groupings of apartment buildings, around
Okay.
Larkin Street.
Wow.
And, those are some of my aunties to this day. There was also, a kind of like very small grad school that attracted a lot of immigrants as their students to study
Oh,
business.
okay.
And so, interestingly, a lot of my dad and the uncles went to that school, but they were buddies from back in Thailand. So thankfully, my dad came here, and he had a lot of his bros or whatever from high school also
Uh-huh.
move here at the same time, which was convenient. So they did at least have like a core group of
They had
friends.
each other, yeah,
Yeah,
which
they
is
had
nice.
each other. And then thankfully, their wives also became each other's friends. And those became my aunties, my uncles, and eventually my cousins. So that was the
Nice.
family I grew up with. So that's how it's a small enough community at that time
Hmm.
where that generation of Thai immigrants, even now, I will run into Thai Americans my age, and then we will have found out later that our parents already knew each other from way back
Oh,
when. Even
wow.
though they're not like super close now, but they're like, oh yeah, I know them. Like, oh yeah,
Right.
how's your son? And I'm like, what?
Aw,
Yeah, so
that's so
it's a
comforting.
small
I find that really
yeah,
comforting.
it's a small community, and they're like, yeah, we
Yeah.
used to play soccer or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So your parents met here. They
Mhm.
both came from Thailand right around the same time, right?
Mhm.
And how so and they live still in the Tenderloin. They're still in
Oh
that
no,
area.
my parents have since divorced, and my dad is actually retired in Thailand now, so he's back there. But my
Wow.
mom and my stepfather live now in Daly City, just
Okay, okay,
which,
cool.
for those people who aren't familiar with the San Francisco area, is the the suburb town that sits right on the southern border of San Francisco.
Right, right. So it's fairly close to the water though, right? You can see the water from
Daly
Daly?
City is very coastal, and I think has worse fog than San Francisco.
Right.
It's thicker in Daly City. Um, and Daly City folks have this joke where it's like you just wear your hoodie all year round.
The coldest, what is that? I love that, Mark Twain. The coldest
Yeah.
winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's the story of my life. I was born and raised in the city and on the western side of the city where that would be true.
Right.
And so my joke is like, in Daly City, it's hot cocoa weather in July.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Now, embellish a little bit on your writing process. Like, what is your writing process like? And you did mention that it just comes in spurts. It comes wherever you could be meditating in the shower. You could be going for a walk in nature. And so these ideas come to life. And then do you feel like once that idea hits, do you like literally need to run to a pen and paper and start writing stuff down? Or how does it transform onto paper?
I definitely need to remember either the line or the image that caught me. And if I am in a place, I do have like baby notebooks in all of my purses.
Yeah.
Um, or just like they're just notebooks strewn all over my house. I'm the type of person, if I go to conferences and they're handing out free notes, like I grab them because I use them for everything.
Awesome.
And so there is always a notebook around, and it's always about getting that first image or line down just so that I remember it.
Yeah.
And then even if I'm not in a place of writing, then I'll wait till I am, like wait till I have a journaling session. And and then after that, I make a choice as to whether I'm going to type it on my laptop or
Mm,
write it out by hand. And I choose to write it out by hand if I feel like it's actually not developed enough and I need to discover more about it. Because I think writing by hand, it's that I really love the stream of
totally.
consciousness technique.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if it's still such a baby of a story that I don't know where it is, I don't know where it's going, then I'll take that line and do a stream of consciousness,
Mm,
journaling session and see where
right.
that goes. But if I have enough of a story around it and I feel like it needs to come out quickly or I'll lose it, then I have to type
Mhm.
on my laptop, which I would say actually most of the stories in the cookbook were actually pretty ripe for that. Is most of
Mm,
this was the one line and went straight to the laptop because these memories had already been so circulated in my brain for use
yeah.
in life. Like, oh, that lesson about work, or oh, that lesson about what I learned on that Thailand trip. I actually come back to it enough that I remember why it's important to me, that it's quick enough that I don't have to massage it too much anymore. And I did type it out on a laptop because it can come out quickly.
Now, do you find, were you in your younger years, even just before you started working on the book, were you big into journaling or writing down stuff or a diary or anything like that? I was just curious.
Diary? I remember
Or even just journaling,
yeah,
like,
the closest thing to journaling is in elementary school, they were very structured about it. And and I think the prompt they gave me as a 6-year-old is, I totally remember this. And I think the 6-year-old mind would totally warp this meaning, but it was either I appreciate or I resent, which I think are very strong sentiments.
Wow.
It was like very strong things to be.
That sounds like something we should do at Rockwood.
Yeah, just every day, you had to do both too.
Okay.
It was like, I appreciate and I resent. And I think, I was a pretty like bubblegum happy kid. So the resent part was really hard for me.
Hard to do, yeah.
And I would say things like, I don't know, like my cousin stole my, ate the rest of my thing, like somebody took something from me. I was an only child, so sharing was a problem for me. So like, oh, my cousin took my toy or something.
Right.
But I loved so I think that was I really go back to appreciation because of that, like, the gratitude practice. So that's my first journaling memory. And I think journaling was very strong in my elementary. I do remember every grade in elementary school had a journaling practice. So I thank you, Claire Lilienthal Elementary School. And I have some really funny, like my mother and I, my mother kept some of my 7-year-old journals, and they are hilarious. They're hilarious. That's so sweet.
And I love children's writings. It's just it's profound.
It is.
There's so many lessons.
There's no filter.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's no filter at all.
That's really cool.
I didn't realize how much writing I had done. Like, I didn't give it very much credit. And I'm so glad that they made us write so much. And then I kind of got a complex about it in high school. Like, I was afraid to get it wrong in high school because, we start writing papers that are structured in a certain way, and you have a thesis. And so I kind of, that was, I think, the period of writing training where the grammar, you had to know the rules of grammar. And I appreciate that too. Like I eventually became a TA for my freshman year English teacher because I totally respected what he did. He made it so fun to know grammar rules. He was that kind of teacher that would sing, that would like play Schoolhouse Rock, for us to have the songs about conjunction, junction, and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I became a TA for him, which I also didn't expect because I didn't consider myself a creative writer, but I was like, I do know the rules. I know where you put a comma.
Right.
But I didn't consider myself that creative at that time. I was just like I was like, oh my God, these college essays have to come out a certain way. And yeah.
Right.
So that was a time where writing was a lot of pressure.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I felt the same way, I think, even through high school.
And that lasted through college for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. High school, college. Now, what do you think of this notion that the best stories or books are really written at the 5th to 7th grade level?
I don't know about books. I actually, I don't know much. I don't know much of the current children's books. But I will say,
even not even children's books. Like I've been hearing from authors that the best books that just become really easy to read and what have you, that the best grade level that we should all be writing at is like 5th to 7th grade.
Oh, I've never heard it that way.
When you think about that grade level of English.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like anything beyond that is almost like too much. Like the word that comes to mind is curly Q, like when
Like very
writing is so
literary.
flowery and like
Yep.
all these extra
Yep.
words,
Okay, I
like
think I'm getting it now.
yeah. So that's what I was learning like about writing is that like simple is best. Like simple is best.
I've never heard it described on a grade level thing
Yeah.
before, but what it calls to mind for me and what really influences my writing style, and one of my most influential books was a book I read in seventh grade. So there you go. Um,
Well, what
it
was
was,
it? Can you share?
yeah, Sandra Cisneros' House on Mango Street. And I write that way to this day. Like her vignettes are short and sweet.
Yeah.
I think it's such a, and I learned it from a summer school program I was a part of. And,
Oh,
like, what's the best thing to teach in summer school? Like, kids don't need more homework. So they gave us this book
right.
that is like so insightful and so real and through a child's eyes and so short. Like, our homework would be like, let's read this 2-page vignette. And I was like, oh, why can't they give us homework like this during the school year? Like, we have to read like
Right.
3 chapters a night.
Repeat the name and the author. I want to write that
Yeah.
down.
Sandra Cisneros. And her book is,
Sandra? So
yeah,
Sandra, right?
yep. And The House on Mango
Cisneros.
Street.
What's the title?
The House on Mango Street.
Oh, that sounds so cute. I've never seen that one.
And
So that's new to me. I'm gonna have to look that up.
it's written from a child's perspective, but it's not what you would consider it's a very real life book.
Okay. It sounds
That's what I'll
interesting.
say about it. It's a very real life book.
I love the title, The House on Mango Street.
And
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm gonna look it up.
and you know what? I read it in seventh grade, but it was also an assignment to read again sophomore year of high school. So it kind of speaks to how well rounded it is.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was so short and kind of got to the point and did not have a lot of floweriness
Yeah.
to it. And like I said, it feels very real. And the other thing, I think kind of the point you're making about, the grade level of writing is I've
Mm-hmm.
also started reading, I got into martial arts in my 30s. And so I started reading how martial artists
Cool.
write. And it's
Ah,
the same way. Like it's kind of, you wouldn't think that, these masters who have studied their craft and really honed it, you think it would be like very deep, intense, like almost academic writing. It's not at all,
right.
So if you want a fun example, I read Jackie Chan's memoir.
Oh,
And
yes.
and he says in the book, like how he wrote that book, like he told the stories verbally and had somebody help him write it out. But the stories are definitely like, when you read the book, you're like, nobody else could tell this but Jackie, the
Right.
person who went
Right.
through this. And it's the same way. It's so simple and so straightforward. And I think it speaks to kind of a non-Western way of storytelling where it's just so forthright and that
Mm,
it's very plain, but that there's so much to be said in the white space
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
story.
So
So
it sounds like
that also
the,
really influenced the style.
of
And
of your writing.
what I think is being said of, like why the 5th to 7th grade level, it's that less is more.
Yeah.
And the essence of like one sentence can say so much. It's that whole a picture says, what is that
Yeah.
idiom?
Picture says a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly the style of writing. To be able to, I don't know, take one event and put
Mm-hmm.
it out very shortly, but still have it say that all it needs to say.
And I love that you mentioned the word minimal because
Mm.
so my podcast is about organizing and moving towards
Ah,
minimalism. But the thing is my podcast it's a lot about home, and I think cooking and home are like hand in hand. Like it
mm.
just goes together.
Yeah,
It's all about the cooking and the kitchen, truly the heart of the home. But I don't know if you've heard of the minimalists. So Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, and they have a writing workshop that's like the minimalist writing workshop. So they also teach very interesting concepts, but the writing that they are referring to, like if you read any of their books too, it really sounds like a conversation. So it sounds like you're sitting with someone across from the table and they're telling you a story. And I have the feeling like that's what your Stir Fry Stories really kind of moves toward in a sense, right? So, but I love that. Yeah, I like that whole concept of really writing where you can draw the reader into like your own space.
Oh, that's
Yeah, and
cool.
I'm just thinking that looking at your, just even reading a little bit that I read about your story and what have you on your website, I was like, wow, this is so awesome. I can't wait to read the whole thing. Yeah, that's exciting. So then, so I have a silly question. So your writing process, is there a specific thing or a way that you like, do you need to get into a certain outfit? Do you have to have a beverage? Do you like need to be in a certain part of your house? Or are you just like, when it hits and you just do whatever you need to do? You know, some people really like get into like,
do I have a routine or a ritual around it?
I'm an author and I need to get into my like writing outfit, which is fine. I think it's so cool. But is there anything specific that you notice you do when you're writing or that you need? You're like, oh, I really need this pen or I need this type of notebook. Or
I haven't thought of it on the basis of an outfit, so I can't say I have that. I've written in my sweats and I've written in, business casual.
Yeah. So you don't have your like cashmere sweatsuit, perfect cashmere like writer's outfit.
I don't have that. I do say I need both my laptop and a notebook in case, whichever mode I feel in at the moment.
Right.
I do need a warm beverage, so tea or chai.
Yeah.
Yeah, something soothing. And a lot of folks, I can do silence or sound. So I grew up on television. So actually having background television, if I'm pretty set on, if I just actually already know, like the idea is already set and I already know, and it's just a matter of getting it onto the page. There's no like discovery involved. I know where I'm going. Then I'm okay with background noise. So I can do it with the television, but
it kind of drones off in the back, and it doesn't even. It just becomes a mumble.
Yeah, and it's the same as
it's like white noise.
Yeah, and it's the same as I'm definitely not watching thrillers or suspenseful dramas while I'm writing. So that's one thing. There is something about the tone of the noise.
Yeah.
And I also, when I need to get out of my home, I love cafe culture. Like it's my favorite thing in the world to find different cafes. And I'm not like a snob about it. Like I love Starbucks too. Like
yeah.
Like I just want to be in a different space and be with other people who are also either socializing or waiting for whatever it is they're waiting for. So I love a good cafe.
And a lot journaling. of creative people really do, frequent cafes, and you can see them in there, like in their own world. And they even have like a lot of people have little earbuds in, and they're just doing their thing. It's cool. I love it. I love that vibe.
So I love cafe culture. And if I'm feeling like at a blank, like I don't even know where I'm going. So it kind of is like proportional to what I need. So this cookbook, once it had a shape and form, and I know it's going to be a cookbook memoir, and I might know all the details, that I've already painted the picture of what that might not look like. If I'm trying to like, oh my God, what's the next step in my career, or that kind of thing, or if I have like some emotional issue I need to work through, then I need to get bigger. So Virta, it's time for a staycation. And
Good for
and I don't,
you.
yeah, I love sitting poolside and writing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
So
something about sitting on a lounger, right? With your legs up and you're just relaxing, and then you can just let it flow.
hmm
That's so
and
awesome.
yeah. And then I would say natural bodies of water too. So I grew up by the beach, which is
Oh,
it's a very loud body of water, I have to say, but something about
yeah.
me and water. So by the beach, by the bayside,
Mm,
even if I'm not physically writing, just sitting around it, some idea will come to
yeah.
me.
Oh, that's so, oh, I can just picture it now. I love it. I love it. Anything else you want to add? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your writing process, or do you think you've covered most of
I
it?
think, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
So, so final, well, maybe not final question, but another question, kind of a bigger question is what is your vision for this book now that it's done? It's basically going to be on bookshelves. It's going to be distributed all over. What is your vision for the future of your book?
Mm. Well, I'd love to, of course, write more books. But for this book in particular, I wanted I wanted something where it would speak to people who, even if cooking wasn't their thing, that they would at least have an intimacy with their food. And I know that has to that it's not like it's not like this is basketball. Where it's like I want everybody to have an intimate relationship with basketball. With
Yeah.
cooking, it's like if you don't have an intimate relationship with cooking, I wanted people to have an intimacy with their food, and I do know that people need to eat.
Yeah.
So even if their lifestyle or the circumstances of their life um, don't allow for like big luxurious meals or preps or anything like that, that there would at least be like kind of a sacredness to how we eat, because I think people's lives are getting busier, and something that what I'd like to say, and I on a very tactical level, I would like this book to have a really great tour, and to share my stories and to share my relationship with food and how I grew to have an intimate relationship, very close relationship with it, and how it impacted the whole of my life, through other things. And that would be great. Like on a very tactical business level, I would love like unlikely collaborations of where I can share my cookbook rather than just foodies. I think this has its place in other areas too. But I think, if I'm just kind of talking generally, something actually does have me concerned is that what people do get is how core food is to us, how excited we can get about it, how people gather around it. I don't think people really debate that. And, it's so true that even in the most productive of places, so when I was getting my MBA, it really struck me that despite all the strategic things that they teach in an MBA, something that they made clear, and that there was a very high contingent of international students in our school, and a good proportion of curriculum was taught about international business. And that they had to make it a point at an American business school to say, if Americans, if you want to work internationally, you better know how to eat with people. Like it was like number one, like we would have these what they call immersion trips to other countries so that you can get case studies. And so like I went to the China one. But it was actually it's very ingrained. Even if it's not food, you had to gather around with people in an informal way. So happy hours and parties were really big. And at first I kind of scoffed at that, but I actually really respect that they said that, and and I think a lot of people will go, well, yeah, that's a no brainer. Like you have to you have to be able to mingle and network. You know, network's really big. People say networking in the professional world. But I will say though, and I will say I'm also guilty of this, is how many of us have said that they've been so busy working today that they didn't eat lunch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so that's actually
That.
concerning to me, that we would
Yeah.
honor the fact that we would say, yeah, you know, like to build community, to network, to know how to interrelate with other cultures if we go abroad and do business. Like, of course, yeah, we learn how to eat and enjoy it. And isn't that awesome? Like, I think people are really inspired by that and really get that. But then when it comes to like every day to day, did I eat lunch today?
Right. Right.
And did I actually get so lost in my work that, oh wait, do I have anything in my fridge even? Or did I
Right.
pack anything for lunch? And so that, and I to maybe even a really rigid religious point, had lunch religiously in my
Yeah.
office job.
Yeah.
And I could say now that I'm not in that office job, is I would take luxurious lunches at the expense of my work. But I will say, that in a position of leadership, that is essential, because
Yeah.
the cohesion of the team and knowing who your team is, I think I built that real
God,
estate
that's so important.
during
Yeah.
in the break room, pre-pandemic times when the break
Yeah.
room was a thing.
Right. So
So I
you
take a lot
really
of
are
pride in that.
modeling.
Yeah, I really
You're
take a lot of
modeling
pride
for your
in my
people.
lunchtime practice.
Yeah.
So if anything, what is my vision is I want people to, one, remember to eat at all, and
Right.
two is to eat together.
Yeah.
And then if there is time and space, or to actually to begin carving out time and space as if it was that. So it's like, if I were to ask anybody on the street, like, what are you doing this weekend? You know, they might say, I'm going to this fair, I'm going to the pumpkin patch. I would like a commonplace thing for people to say of what they're doing on their weekend is, I'm revolving everything that I do this weekend around one pot of soup.
Yeah.
Getting the
Yeah.
ingredients for it, simmering it, and anything involving the family to
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah. Totally.
And anything else, all the appointments, all the events, they come second.
Yeah. No, I'm with
All the
you.
errands, they come second.
Totally.
And that the primary, because that's actually, you know, our ancestors had to do it that way. They're like, when's our next meal?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And
Um,
it's, I like what you said, like bringing intentionality into eating. So I'm very much, that is a good quality that I have, is that I don't like to miss food because of work or things like that. Like, I actually prioritize breaks and getting food and eating. And I remind everyone too. I'm kind of like the virtual
Oh,
break room person. Like, I'm like, hey, did you eat lunch yet or whatever?
right.
But yeah, no, I love planning. Like, my whole week will be planned around, like, this Sunday I'm gonna make like a coconut curry. So I have,
Oh,
I'll give my husband the list. He'll pick everything up tomorrow. But tonight we're doing nachos. So that was something like I planned, and like a few days ago. So one thing I don't know how people do with their food, but I find that when we do a huge grocery and stuff the fridge, like, so many things get wasted and spoiled.
hmm.
So we've been doing it where we actually shop. My husband does all the groceries, so we shop a
Oh,
lot
cool.
more often, and
Yep.
we're only specifically shopping for a certain recipe, or not even necessarily a
Hmm.
recipe, but just something we're going to make.
Hmm.
Because I feel guilty. Wasting food is like a huge thing for me. Like, I
Yeah.
hate wasting food. When you think about people who don't even get to eat, it's like, wow, we're just sitting here wasting hundreds and thousands of pounds every year. So that's a
Hmm.
new practice I took, which is to really actually have an idea of what you're going to be making. And so
Yeah.
I love that. So it's kind of like, shop prep, meal prepping, but I'm not prepping like for weeks and weeks on end.
Right.
It's just for like the couple of times a week where I can really spend time to cook and enjoy the process rather than being rushed and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so I love that you mentioned that eating intentionally and really like enjoying what you're eating, and then also bringing in community. That's so important. Like eating with people can sometimes be even more fun unless you're like, okay, I just want to like eat by myself and watch like Downton Abbey or something like that and not have anybody bugging me. But yeah, but no, I love that. And I love that the vision is for your book is to invoke that in community. And actually, I wanted to ask you something that we should actually talk about is you have an event coming up very shortly, very soon, and it's in Menlo Park at some gorgeous hotel, right? And yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because that's part of your vision for the book is to have some of these like events and get the word out there. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your event that's coming up?
Yeah, it's my book launch party. So it's
Yay!
celebratory for me, to see my friends and family, but also, to have strangers who would be interested in this book attend too. And I, at first, did not consider having an in-person launch. I did have a closer knit friends and family virtual launch. And I thought that would be it.
Yeah, that was so much fun too.
I think, to your point about life and flow is I kind of, half befriended the staff at this hotel because it actually became one of those cafes where I write. And they started to notice, and the cafe would just naturally flow also into their happy hour.
Right, which is so much fun.
And so their staff just became curious. They're like, "Oh, you really like sitting here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm working on this book launch." And they were like, of course they were the event sales staff, and they were just like so excited, saying like, "Would you like to host a launch party here?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh,
that's so amazing!"
And they're like, "We can make it affordable for you, and we want to support like local businesses here." And I said,
fantastic.
I was floored because I was just like, I just enjoy sitting at the bar and journaling and like getting my mocktail, and they're offering me like the space that is really beautiful. It's like this lovely conference room that opens up into a courtyard, and it would be like it is a dream location for me to host an event.
Oh, I'm so excited. And so where is it? So give us a little bit. Where is it?
It's in Menlo Park. It's the Park James Hotel. And I would love to support them too, because they're independently operated, which is, this day and age, not easy to find in a hotel.
Repeat the name of the hotel?
The Park James.
The Park James.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
cool.
And they've been so gracious. They understand that it's a cookbook and has I actually asked if their restaurant wanted to do the catering, but I also said, because it's an Asian cookbook, I would at least like Asian food, and they said, they can't alter their menu that far, right. And so they were very gracious to let me bring in food from outside.
That's so cool, yeah,
and really have it be the event that I wanted it to be. So it's kind of all about that part of it, having it come up organically.
Yeah.
I was not shopping around for venues to host a book launch party. And the fact that one was offered to me is probably the only sole reason I'm holding one.
It's such
and bringing people together about it. Yeah. Yeah. So I will say that is a part of, I will say that is one event in the many flows that have entered my life as I've been writing this book. The same thing was true about finding my illustrator, finding my editor and book designer. It all kind of came together that way, even after some hiccups when I tried to work with photographers that it didn't pan out one way or the other. And so it flowed a different direction to
and that's what happens when you're in the zone and everything aligns. It just, it aligns, and it's just awesome, right? It feels good. So
I will
then,
say too,
yeah.
who's the most excited is the aunties. Not even like my friends or friends who I have that are also creatives and things.
Uh-huh.
Who's the most excited is my mother and all the aunties.
Aw. So your mom will be there? Your mom
Yeah.
will be there
Oh, of
for
course.
sure? Oh,
Like
I can't wait to meet her. That'll be
she thought she was
awesome.
on the crew, and I was like, "No, mom, I want you to relax during this."
She thought she was on the crew.
Yeah. She's like, "What time am I arriving? What time do you need me
Right,
there?" And I
right.
said, "You're a guest."
So you know what? Can I ask you, do we have time for a couple
Hmm.
of so one question I really wanted to ask is what are your most fond memories at the table? And I was curious if you remember who you were with and what you were eating. So
Mm.
if you have just even just one, uh, you know how sometimes, like you said, like a certain scent or a smell can like bring you back
Hmm.
to a place. Is there a memory you have, even as a child, just where you're sitting at the table and you're with someone, and whoever that may be, or it could even be more recent. But do you have a memory like that, like a really fond memory?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's great is that a lot of those memories are in the book. So I'll
Okay,
give you a
cool.
preview of one of my favorites is,
Okay.
and it's about how we can be together and not be together at the same time. So
Hmm.
on one of the trips lately, um, in the past 10 years, I've gone to Thailand more than my mom. It'll take like a special occasion, like a wedding or something for her to go. But I go on my own. I meet up with friends, I do my exploration thing, and then I hang out with her siblings on her behalf. And and so there was one year where I was there for New Year's, and so that was like a really great excuse for she has a lot of siblings, so they could all come together. But this was one of those odd years where like my cousins were out of town and some siblings had moved far away, and so like we were kind of only half there. It wasn't everybody all together, so we were kind of just like half there as a family, and yet my family is so um what's the word? They feel so responsible that they have to make up for the gap. So one gap is that they, they seem to think that just because I'm Thai, I have the same palate as them. That I grew up with this American palate. I eat different things, but they're like, oh, then in their heads, I'm deprived. I don't know all the core motherland foods. So it's their job when I'm there to just stuff me with it. They're like, oh, you don't get all this stuff. What's all your favorite
Oh my
stuff? And we
God.
have to tell you all this other stuff that you should know how to eat, you know?
So they're
And
really educating you in the
yeah,
local fare, like
yeah.
what's
And
right there.
I mean, they take it it really is their responsibility. That's
Yeah,
how they feel like they are responsible.
right.
They're like, one of our own has left and she needs to know.
Yeah, they're trying to
It's very
instill
serious.
the culture, right? The culture and
Yeah.
the food. They're trying to
And
instill
the
that.
pathway that they've chosen is through my mouth and stomach, which has limited capacity. I mean, maybe in my 20s it would have been better, but I was like, my mid 30s at this point. And I wrote in my book, I was like, it was noon and I had already eaten like 3 meals. And then on top of that, not
They're
only
trying to
was
feed you more.
right, not only were they responsible for telling me everything I did not know about Thai food. And this was like my 15th trip to Thailand, so it's not like it's new.
Wow.
Um, but on top of that, I was also supposed to eat all the foods that my mom missed on her behalf.
Mm.
So they love calling my mom while I'm there and then
Mm-hmm.
talking to her and then just having me listen along. And because my mom does miss her siblings and she's the only one across the ocean. And so
Oh.
she will tell them, and she's not even asking. She'll just tell them, "Oh, I miss eating this, I miss eating that." And then they'll just buy it as if she's
Mm.
there and then feed it all to me and I have to also eat that. And it just somehow has this logical sense. And then what I thought was an even further step down, crazy land was I had a cousin who was in grad school in Seattle, and she was born and raised in Thailand, but went to grad school in Seattle. And she wasn't there, but we had to buy her favorite food too and eat that. So, I mean, I think it just says that there's one, I think, for whatever it is Americans think of as Thai food, and I think it's actually getting quite comprehensive. Does in no way compare to what is actually the pantheon that is Thai food. Like I can't even begin to explain what is on the street sides of
Oh my gosh, I can only
how
imagine.
plentiful it is.
Yeah.
And how much, I mean, I think people in California will understand, like Thailand is an agricultural state. California is an agricultural state. So I think Californians will kind of get that feeling as you leave a metropolitan area and it's agriculture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and Thailand is very much like that. And that starting a food business doesn't have as much red tape and is still quite lucrative. So I think, for example, on YouTube, I don't know how much this is true, but the fact that Thai YouTubers are saying it this way. So I think food YouTubers in America will say like are popular because they teach you how to make this in your kitchen. And they'll say like, this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of YouTubers, you know, the ones in the rural areas in Thailand that I've looked up, like odd recipes that I want, what they're saying to people is you can make this and sell it. You know, and I don't see American YouTubers saying that to people. They're not saying like, oh, take this and sell it and be a street vendor.
Right.
But Thai people, like, that's just how they're thinking. And it's actually quite generous. Like, they're a vendor. Yeah. And they're trying to be an influencer at the same time. And they're sharing, and they're like, here's my recipe. Take this and sell it in your town. Yeah. And so I think that just says how the cultures are different, like what people can choose to do for a living. And so that is my favorite memory, just because it just speaks to how plentiful and how present food is every moment of the day, like literally every moment of the day.
And you don't look an ounce. You don't look like you gained an ounce after all those years of.
I also have to say I have not been to Thailand in 3 years.
Has the cookbook, was there any, I actually meant to ask you, are you the type of person who can you easily gain weight or not? Some people, like, your metabolism might be awesome, but I was curious if the cookbook kind of made you maybe gain a little bit of happy weight just because you were having to do.
There was a phase in the pandemic where, I think this was all written in the pandemic. So I think that first year of the pandemic was, what do they say when you first get to college, like the freshman 15?
Oh, whatever? Yeah. Oh, pandemic was, everybody gained weight.
Mm-hmm. So I did experience some of that. And thankfully, I did have a virtual trainer in the pandemic. And I had to scale it back.
Yeah.
I did have to scale back.
And, you know, one thing I just thought of something that you said about sharing knowledge. And, you know, honestly, VC, I feel like that's a new business unto itself, like knowledge sharing. Mm-hmm. You look at YouTube, like people will teach you how to do anything and everything. And they'll even encourage you to do whatever they're doing so you can make your million or whatever. And I find that, so that's interesting. So even Thailand YouTubers are really sharing knowledge in the hopes that you will actually use it to make a living or to make your own money, which is really cool. Really cool. I like that saying. I think it's the Airbnb CEO, and he says, you don't have to lose for me to win.
Yeah.
It's something like, I may be butchering it a little bit, but it's something like that. Like, you don't have to lose for me to win, or I don't have to, you know, something like that. You don't have to lose for me to win, meaning like we can both shine, right? We can both do what we want to do, which I love. I had a couple of other questions. How's your time looking?
Yeah, I'm good. A couple more is fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Which one do I like the best? Oh, yeah. So how has, and you did touch on this, But what was who actually was your greatest influence on becoming a home chef? Are you considered, I call people who are really good cooks at home like a home chef.
Yeah.
So
I'll go for that one.
who would you consider was really like, you know how sometimes we'll do something and then we'll figure out like, oh wow, it was that one moment that like steered me into this, and now you're like in it like crazy. Was there a moment, or was there an influence, someone specific that kind of like just gave you the little seed and then you ran with it?
Yeah. I know so many people will have this answer, so it's not unique or anything, but Julia Child. And I say that because I
love her.
Yeah, me and so many people who grew up reading cookbooks like have such a long history with her. But I also feel like very connected for a couple reasons. One, she was the first cookbook I ever read. So for me to just like, I don't know, at 14, be reading like the cookbook of cookbooks, mastering the art of French cooking. And that's only because my mother is actually not that great at Thai food. And one of her side gigs, in addition to tailoring, was catering the occasional holiday party. And the client, who's actually now my godmother, so it's like, it doesn't feel like business. It's she really did like kind of raise my mother professionally too. She would hire my mom to cook for her parties, but also at the same time, like she loved developing women's careers. So of course she would be like, oh, on the side, do you want to attend a Julia Child seminar? So whenever like Julia Child, and these were back in the days where Julia Child had book tours.
Wow.
And after her show and all of that. And so like at the local cookware store, they said Julia Child's making an appearance. So my godmother would like say, my mom's name is Rooney. She would be like, Rooney, you should go to this and then learn from this, because she was the one who was like, use Julia Child's cookbook. These are the recipes I would like you to make. And then so my mom raised me on Julia Child. Like, so, I actually didn't. I
remember watching her on TV.
Yeah, I think I
loved watching her.
I started helping with souffles before I made my first Thai curry. I want to say.
And so, the souffle,
it's hard, yeah. So it's like that hard
work. That's a persnickety
like,
little thing right there.
Yeah, and she's like, you can't stop. And so she would start me out on custards, which is like, a stepping stone to a souffle. So that was like my first serious cooking interaction. So Julia Child, I've had this book ever since I still have the same book. It's falling apart. It's like literally the spine is like torn. And we would, I always made a tart from it for Thanksgiving. And so Julia Child's been with me. And then so my godmother actually was an alumni of Smith College. So was Julia Child.
Oh, wow.
Fate would have it, I go to Smith College.
Oh my gosh.
So I become inducted.
Where is this? Where is Smith College?
College is in Western Massachusetts. It's one of the oldest women's colleges in the country, still remains a women's college. A lot of them have turned co-ed.
Right.
And so I became inducted into this legacy of women's education. And I think it was fate, this whole story is also in the book, where one day I'm walking on campus with my friends and another friend walks by and they're like, Julia Child's at the alumni house having tea right now. And we don't know. We don't even know if we were going to class that day. We were just like, we're going. And so I have this picture with me and my like best college friends with Julia Child after we had tea.
No
with her. And
way.
It was such an intimate tea. I think there were only like 8 people there. Like nobody knew because it wasn't publicized. They were like, she's there right now. And they're like, people can walk in if you want. But Julia really loved Smith. I mean, I think she even bequeathed her Cambridge house to the school. And so I feel very connected to her in that way. We have this like Smith sisterhood.
Yeah. Well, she's such a big personality. What was it like to be in a room with her? That's crazy.
She was quite settled into, I mean, she passed the year I graduated. So the fact that I saw her
Oh,
my sophomore year
wow.
was so
Oh,
meaningful. And she
she's
felt
an
really,
icon.
and I've read her memoirs. I've seen the dramatizations of her life and
You
all the
saw the movie, yeah.
documentaries. Yeah, the
Right.
documentaries. And what I was saying about my vision, I really do get it from her. She wanted, I don't even have a connection to that generation of America and food at that time, but she said that there just wasn't a connection to kitchen and cooking. It was the
Mm-hmm.
microwave meal or ready-made
Oh,
food in a
so
can, and so that she so fell in love with French food and actually honored it as a not French person. And I think that's so true these days, as we have such a global palate, that I think people,
yeah.
I do want not Thai people to really love Thai cooking, but really honor
Yeah.
it for what it is. And she did that so well. Because a lot of people get a lot of flack for appropriation these days, and I also get
Right.
offended by instances of that. But I felt like
Right.
Julia was like a really great example of how to do it respectfully
Right. Totally. Well,
and
Jacques
and
Pepin,
be
he like,
herself. Oh, Jacques
and
Pepin.
Jacques Pepin, he like is crazy about Julia, and they've done a couple of shows together,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's French from France. Like he is as
yeah. He's
French as you can get.
yeah.
Jacques Pepin, I mean, come on.
I watched it when they did their show together. That was always
Oh, they were so
they were a good
awesome.
pair.
And he was so wonderful, like the way he respected her. And like he even has said in an interview a couple of times that he can't believe the way that she has embodied French cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Like she literally could be a young French girl born in France learning to cook from her French grandmother. Like he's
Yeah.
really like spoken so highly of her, and her skill level
Mm-hmm.
is beyond.
And I think she's one of those perfectionists where it's like to a flaw. Like oh my God, like if anybody needs a model perfectionist, it's probably Julia Child. I mean, I
Yeah.
read how she would like, and she was so protective. Like she would put like top secret. And she was writing her like top secret, do not share, like that kind of
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
The way Hollywood scripts are now with like
Yeah.
non-disclosure agreements. And so
Right.
I love Julia Child, and
Me too.
I feel so proud to be connected to an institution that she loved so much. Because I'm a proud Smith alum too, and it opened her up,
That's so cool.
and I think it truly inspires women to like, the whole like, what is it called now? They didn't have this phrase when I was in college, but like, you do you.
Yeah. Right. Right. One other question I have for you, and it doesn't have to be, but I was just curious, do you consider food your love language? Or is there
Oh,
something else that you like if you have friends over and people or somebody's coming to spend the weekend with you? I can only imagine that I know that VC is going to cook. Like you're going to cook up a storm.
I'm gonna
But
cook or
if
I'm gonna order out.
you're going to
At
cook
a
or
place I
order.
like.
So
Yeah.
is there something other than cooking that you could consider your love language, or is cooking really like this is how you show people what you've got and what they mean to you?
Cooking, tea. I think this is totally cultural, but I think it really works for me too, is gifts. Um,
Okay.
there's I totally laugh because the most recent, the Disney animation that is about Southeast Asian culture, Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh,
So
yes.
there's
Yeah,
this
I
joke
saw that.
where no matter what new land you enter, bring a gift. I just like laugh.
I saw that.
Like
I
no matter
saw
what you
that.
do, you bring a
It's
gift.
amazing. Did you like it?
And
I loved it. I thought it was so
I
good.
really enjoyed it. I have some wish list items that I wish were in there, but as a whole, like I
Yeah.
cried, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was
Um,
crying, especially when the dad was up on the bridge and he turned to stone. Oh my gosh. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah, all the trust issues and stuff. So,
yeah. Oh my
um,
gosh. And then the
I would
friend,
say
that
gifts
little
and
girl.
food. Oh,
Remember the little girl? And I was like, right at the beginning, I was like, oh, watch it. I don't know if she's a good person. Remember the little girl who
yeah, 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 and like her
she
kingdom
was
wore
a
white.
little, I was very weary about her, and then she turned out to be bad, right? Which
Yeah.
was, yeah, but no, that was a great movie. But so, okay, so you're thinking, so gift giving,
Food and
is the
gifts.
gift giving a food gift even? Like, would it even be a food gift?
Mm, you know what I love doing is I love commissioning art.
Mm.
So maybe even if it wasn't like made for that person. So like for example, I know it just was so perfect. It was like there was this one cartoonist, Thai American cartoonist I discovered on Instagram.
Oh,
And oh,
wow.
you'll love this because you said that thing about our mom. Her mom was a seamstress too. And she, for
Oh,
Mother's Day, drew a picture of a little girl watching her mother sew and then wrote some phrase in Thai on top.
oh, oh,
And
that makes me sad. I used to watch
I
my
know.
mother do
Yeah,
stuff.
and
Oh,
I took that image and also gave it to my mom for Mother's Day. So I
oh,
just
how
love giving,
sweet.
art as gifts.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's the same thing. Like I was like, oh my God, I have so many pictures of my grandparents who my book is dedicated to. Um,
Oh, oh, that's beautiful. You
and so
dedicated your five stories.
the illustrator for the dedication page I gave her like, here are 3 pictures of my grandparents, just like do what you can with this. And she did a really
Oh,
great portrait of them for the
I
dedication
need
page of the
to
book.
see that. I haven't seen that
So
page. I need
and
to
I
see
know none
that.
of my
That's
Thai relatives are listening to this anyway, but I think I'm going to get those printed, in like in a nice, so
beautiful.
that it could be something that they have in their home. Because
Wow.
they were like kind of like, like this book might be a waste on us because they can't read English that well. And so until I
You
get it
know what?
translated, I'm going to give them a printout of their parents
And
as
you
a
know
gift.
what? It's not hard anymore to actually translate a book.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, to translate it really, really well, you would need like an
Like
actual
a human. Yeah.
literary
Yeah.
translator. But I think especially in the self-publishing realm, like there's a way to just like click a box, like I want to translate my book into German or into Italian or into French, and you can do it. It would
Oh,
be
okay.
curious. I would be curious if you tried to translate it. Just do one copy,
Right.
translate it to Thai,
Oh.
and then have like an actual Thai person who's really strong in Thai and
Hmm.
English literature, and then see what happens. That would be cool.
Yeah, I would love for it to have that colloquial tone to it. Because that's how I wrote it in English, just to have
Right,
kind of
right.
like
Which so it
something
should
super casual.
translate well. And again, that goes back to if the writing's simple
Hmm.
and really just conversational, it'll actually translate better.
I know if anybody works for Disney and is in their translation department, because I mean, some of the jokes like are just so cultural that you need to know what the equivalent is. Because I watch a lot of Disney cartoons in Thai to see because some of those jokes are like really like this isn't going to be funny in Thai if you did like the word by word.
Right.
And then so I
Yeah.
lived, I was like, oh, how did they do that in Thai language? And then I'm like, oh, that was clever. They have to get their own equivalent of it.
Right, right. Oh, that's so cool. That would be something, huh? To have
Hmm.
your book translated. That could be a future vision for you.
Hmm.
Future vision, yeah. So, I asked you about the memories. What was your greatest influence? How has food shaped your life? Just in a nutshell, how has food kind of shaped your life up to this point where you're actually now written a memoir about food, about family, about your memories, and these are actual recipes that we can actually do right at home. So I can take your book and I can do a recipe. So how has food shaped your life?
See. All I can think is like, well, I've ingested it and it has definitely grown, it's grown my cells and I've shed cells and I've grown more cells. So on a very biological level, it has literally shaped my body and
Right.
fed it.
Nourish.
um, and in terms of shaping my life, um, it teaches me so much about patience. And you know what you were saying earlier about uh, having a better gauge for your fridge so that you don't waste food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's one of those things. It's really humbling, and I think we live in this age of like celebrity chefs. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I think the more I look into celebrities, and yes, there's the glitz and the glam and stuff, but celebrity chefs is different. They know how to roll up their sleeves
Yeah.
to get to
Yeah.
where they've gotten. They've sliced some fingers, and they've had to haul sacks of potatoes to things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So like those restaurateurs, it's like it's very humbling work.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the jobs that I feel like was tough, but really shaping for me. One of my first jobs out of college was part of it was an after school program, but one day a week, me and a bunch of teens were in charge of the food pantry in San Francisco.
Oh.
And I have to say that is the most rewarding work. I mean,
Mm.
it's just like where does it fit in our economy and like
Yeah.
whatever, but it's so rewarding even on the level of like not even like the people we're serving, but it's like we're honoring the food. Like this will definitely not go to waste. Like this was about to be put somewhere else, but no, we're actually giving it a new life.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think like food for me, it's a very humbling thing if
Mm.
one chooses to really look into how it's grown and where it comes from. And I do not consider myself a gardener and farmer, but it's because I'm a
Wow.
cook that I
You
have a
appreciate.
huge respect for people who work in soil and keep our
Yeah.
soil alive,
Right.
which actually really does need to be kept alive. We
Yeah.
need to care for microbes. I now have a respect
Totally.
for my own microbiome and
Yeah.
how it keeps me emotionally balanced. Like it just how does food shape my life? It teaches me how connected I am to everything. Like
Mm.
literally. Like
Really.
if I don't feed the bacteria in my gut, who will?
Right.
Who else? Who literally can feed them and
Right.
keep them alive? And they literally on a neurochemical level keep me happy.
And I love the cycle of food and it coming from the earth, nourishing us, and then yeah, we like it comes out, and then we can actually compost back to the earth, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, when we die, we can put our ashes back into the earth too if we
Mhm.
need to. But it's like it's such an amazing life cycle, and I love that you mentioned the soil because soil is a huge,
Yeah.
right now soil is so depleted in so many parts of this country. And so a lot of just small gardeners are working on how can we create better soil, and even boutique farmers are,
Yeah.
it's all about, don't worry about the food. Don't worry about the crops. Worry about the soil. The soil is what
Yeah.
needs to be,
Yeah.
basically
Regenerative. Yeah.
regenerated, so yeah, so that's interesting. So food kind of it touches everything, right? It just
Mhm.
touches everything. So wow, so that's amazing. Thank you for answering. I basically asked you all
Yay! We got through them all.
I asked you all the questions that I wanted to ask. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. I think we did great.
Now I'm hungry too. It's
Yeah,
like
me too.
now we need to go eat.
Mhm.
But yeah, so thank you so much. I will put some information in when I get the show notes done. I'll
Cool.
make sure to get the right information from you for your website, for where the book's going to be launched, all that stuff. The Menlo Park
Okay.
Hotel, even. Is there a way for people, like if somebody just happens to walk in, can someone just happen to be at the hotel and see what's going on and walk in, or is it only through?
They should pre-purchase tickets and pre-order books through Eventbrite is our preferred. So just so
Okay.
that when we arrive on
So,
the day of, it's just all about being there.
right, right, right. So can I don't know who's gonna come and see you through this information, but can I put that information in my notes just in case somebody is like, hey, I'm local and I want to go see this.
Yeah,
I
so
want to go
they can get all the
VC Tang
information.
and get an autograph.
Yeah, they can go to, probably the easiest is to go to my Instagram, Stir Fry Stories, and I will have all of my links there.
Oh, okay. And you know what? Do you have a Linktree account?
It's in my Instagram.
So I'll copy your Linktree information and put it in my show notes, and hopefully they can just get it through there.
The Linktree is best. Cool. Yeah, you can find my Linktree
I
via
love
Instagram.
Linktree. Linktree is awesome because you got everything in there. That's so cool. Okay, awesome, VC. It was so fun to talk to you and learn more. I'm excited about your future. I'm excited about joining in this fun book launch. That's going to be fun. And I'm definitely going to get one of those good mocktails that you were talking about. I can't wait. And then party at your house after, right? Yeah. That'll be fun. Awesome. Okay, I will say goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you so much
for
being
good.
on my podcast, which again, let me get the name right. It's Organize Your Closet and Your Life Will Follow podcast. And yeah, so we will definitely be in touch. I'll see you soon. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much.
Same. Thank you so much, Ruma. I'm
excited to see you again.
All right.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye. Okay, everyone, that was really fun. So that was my first actual professional interview, or I don't know if you want to call it professional, but I hope you enjoyed it. I will have all the information about VC Tang, about her beautiful new book. I'll have all that in the show notes, how you can join in register to actually meet VC in person in Menlo Park, California. So happy Friday, everyone. I hope you had a great time, and we will talk very soon.